Our next speaker, the one, the only, from the Earn Your Leisure podcast, the media empire. He's the chief operating officer. Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause to Abdoulaye Sow. Give him a round of applause as he comes up at this time. Yes, yes, yes. Get started. So, Abdoulaye, it's good to have you, my brother. How you feeling today?
Thank you for having me.
All right. It's good to have you, man. I know you've been traveling the globe. I saw you in Africa the other day, and now you're back here. You're moving all over the place, making big things happen. Let's begin by just starting off by sharing a little bit of your story. If you can, just give a little background to who you are, and then we'll talk a little more about where you are today and what you're doing.
Yes, sir. So my name is Abdoulaye Sow. Everybody calls me Ab, AB. Either one is fine. I'm from Greeburg, New York, if anybody's familiar. It's a small town in Westchester, New York. Was born there, raised there, have a little brother, mom and dad, middle class family. And, what I saw growing up my whole life was just my dad would be out the house by 7, he'd be back by 8, and I never saw him complain. Worked 5 days a week. On the weekends, he up by 6. Same thing with my mom. So just a hardworking family. Both immigrants from Senegal, and moved here, met each other here, and just a hardworking family.
Yeah. No, definitely. So when you mention your father, which we're going to talk about in a little while, because I understand he played a critical role in your life. But as you were growing up, as a young person, right? Because I know you do a lot of big business right now, but as a young person, what were some of your early interests when you were just getting started?
My only interest was basketball. The NBA, I played basketball since 5 years old, all the way up until college. So growing up, my only interest was basketball. It didn't take me until sophomore year of college. I thought I wasn't gonna make the NBA. So up until then, I still had hopes and dreams. But it was never finance. It was never business. It was never anything really. In our community, a lot of what we see is basketball athletes and rappers and things of that sort. That's what I strove to be at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that you see often, right? Our young people just striving to be what they see, and usually the basketball players, right, and the rap artists
Rappers, yeah.
usually are the first things that you see. So you had some of that same interest. So what did you decide to do? I guess at that point in time when you had this interest in basketball, did you go to college? What were your sort of steps?
Yeah, so I went to college. I studied criminal justice in college, and my plan was to actually be a lawyer. So, got to college. I'm at my junior year, and walking home from class, I said, I don't want to be a lawyer. I said, I'm 3.5 years in, good GPA, 3.5, maybe something around there, and I don't want to be a lawyer. And at that moment, I could start over, but I'm right at the finish line, so I decided to finish it out. Got my bachelor's degree, went back to get my master's in athletic administration. So I said, at this point, all right, you're not making an MBA, you love sports, what do you want to do? Maybe athletic director. So I went to get my master's degree. I actually ended up getting my master's degree in athletic administration, and at the end of it, I still wasn't fulfilled. I said, this is not what I want to do at all. So I ended up getting a job in the admissions office. Still got to pay the bills. I'm grown now. My mom's not just letting me stay home. So I worked in the admissions office for about 2 years. And during this time, Earn Your Leisure is actually made. And we'll get into that. But that's my journey to that point where I'm in the admissions office. I'm talking to students. I'm going to schools. And it's still not fulfilling for me at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a point for many of us to understand. Sometimes you're on a journey, you think this is where you want to be, and then you start to do something and you recognize it's not where I want to be. Let me ask the audience very quick. Is there anyone in a place where they feel like I'm there and I'm doing it, but it's not where I really want to be? By a show of hands, anyone there? All right. And it happens at times, right? It happens at times. The key is to then figure out how you're going to pivot to actually find your passion. So when you found yourself at that point in time, not wanting to do athletic administration and not really wanting to get involved to be a lawyer anymore, what was the thing for you that made you kind of pivot? Because I know you mentioned Earn Your Leisure, which is a big media empire now. What made you kind of pivot?
Well, to be honest, and you'll learn more when we talk about my story. I'm 26 right now. I still don't know what I want to do in my life, and I feel like that's perfectly fine.
Hold on. How old you just said you were?
I'm 26 right now, and to be completely honest, I have no idea what I want to do for the rest of my life.
All right. So imagine at this phase, right? You have these changes that are happening. He recognized, like, hey, I still don't know. But in the meantime, he's still being active. He's still being productive because you got to try different things to figure it out, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing for me. Even though I didn't know what I wanted to do, I knew the one thing I had to do was work hard. And whatever avenue I was in, stay disciplined. So at that moment, I said, all right, you don't know what you want to do now? Just keep your head down, keep working. Keep your head down, keep working. And gotten me to where I am today.
Yep. So certainly, so you then you got connected to Earn Your Leisure. What was some of the background story? I understand that mentorship played a critical role in your life, and there was a program that you were a part of. Could you speak a little bit about that for young people who are in here to understand the value of staying connected to programs that are available to them?
Yeah, so I know you spoke a lot about mentorship, and I was just sitting over there getting chills. So, Earn Your Leisure, like he mentioned, is a media company started about 4 years ago as a business podcast. And what we've been able to grow in the last 4 years is spreading financial literacy, information, and knowledge to our community, basically in a language that everyone can understand. So, it was started by three gentlemen from the town of Greeburg, where I'm from. Troy Millings, Rashad Bilal, and Michael McDonald. And Troy Millings was actually my third grade after school teacher. So I knew Troy my whole life. Fast forward about 16 years, I had a tragedy happen in my life. My father passed away suddenly. And 1 week later, I get a phone call. It's from Troy. I'm sitting in my college dorm, and he says, "You're going to come work for me this summer." I actually told him no the summer before that. He asked me to work for him. I said, "No, I'm good." And it was the funniest story. But he calls me that next year. He says, "I'm not asking you. You have to come work with me. I'm going to make sure you're good. I'm going to get you more money, and you're going to be with me for the rest of the ride." So met him in third grade, had a great relationship. Fast forward, we started working together for about 6 years prior to Earn Your Leisure. And the program we're working on is called Operation Crossroads. It's a summer program. So I don't know if you can remember, but at 13 and 14, what was everybody in here kind of doing during the summer?
Anyone remember what we were doing in the summer? Summer youth employment. If you're in the city, yep.
Well, so at 13 and 14, you're actually too young to work and you're too old for camp. So a lot of kids, especially in our community, they just kind of get into trouble. That's that age where you don't really have a path you can go. So what we did in our community was make Operation Crossroads, which was kind of like a crossroads from 13, 14 to that working experience. So what we did was it's a summer program where kids had internships. We interviewed them, found out their interests, placed them in an internship, took them on college tours, took them to Morgan Stanley Bank, things of that sort, and actually introduced financial literacy. So at this time,
Yeah. Yep.
at this time, I'm about 17 or 18 working with Troy, and a lot of the kids are 13 and 14, like I mentioned. One of the kids is actually here right now, and he's actually my business partner, so we'll tell that story too.
Yeah.
But at 17, 18, we're introducing financial literacy to these kids, and at this point, this is really the first time I'm hearing about it at 17, 18. So while teaching these kids, I'm actually learning myself how to write a check, what are stocks, taxes, things of that sort. So we're introducing it to them at this young age. And at the end of the summer, we actually pay them each $500 also. So the point of teaching them financial literacy is that we're going to pay you at the end of the summer. Instead of going buying 2 pairs of sneakers and now your money's gone, let's teach you how to actually invest it, assets, liabilities, things of that sort.
Yes, definitely. Lessons that are so important for our young people to learn from early, right? Because as you mentioned, they could easily blow that money on shoes and look good for the meantime, but don't have enough to last them a lifetime. So so critical. There was a point that you just made a while ago where you talked about the passing of your father, and we have young people who are in this room who might have not had that same tragedy, but go through tragedies of their own. And could you talk a little bit, if you're comfortable speaking about how was that for you, and then how did you kind of find the strength to be able to kind of push through that pain?
Probably the hardest time of my life, hands down. But it actually turned into the blessings I would receive later on. So I remember walking campus, and it hit me, and I said, at this point, I have two decisions. My grades can go south, and everyone will understand. Everyone will feel bad for me, and no one will say anything about it. Or I won't use it as an excuse and use it as motivation to kind of just push myself forward. So I remember that day on campus, I looked myself in the mirror and I said, I'm not going to use it as an excuse. So from that day forward, it was just making him proud. Just every single day working hard to kind of be exactly where I am today, where I know he's smiling down and he's happy. So instead of being sad all the time, I could actually just smile.
That's powerful. That's powerful. It's about turning pain into purpose. One of the things that attracted me to you when I was following you online on Instagram is that every time he would post something, he would put RIP Dad. And when I saw him post that, I became interested in that. And the first time that I spoke with him at an event, we were at Madison Square Garden, I mentioned to him that I recognized that he did that. So you turn pain into purpose, you kind of push through it. And I guess that's a lesson for all of us in here. When you have something that you go through, it's about pushing through and taking it to the next level. So you went through those years in high school, and what happens is, and then you went to college. And after college, you got to this point now where I guess you were working with Troy from Earn Your Leisure, and Earn Your Leisure in the middle of a pandemic. That was the first time that I actually heard of them. Could you tell us a little bit about what happened there in terms of, I guess, the formation of the organization, and then how you kind of got deeper locked into that?
So it's actually funny. Earn Your Leisure started a year prior to the pandemic, and I want to talk about that too because a lot of times people think with social media things just happen overnight. They happen fast. Earn Your Leisure was up for about a year and a half before a lot of people, like you just said yourself, even heard about it. We didn't make a dollar from it, and we never gave up. We stuck through it, and then during the pandemic, it was obviously a horrible time, but a lot of people were home. A lot of people had money coming in, and they just had a lot of questions about money. And we're on the internet talking financial literacy, business, and it was a perfect marriage. So I just want to touch on that, being persistent, disciplined, and kind of just working. That got us to where we are today. Because that first year and a half, we didn't make a dollar from Earn Your Leisure. But to my introduction to Earn Your Leisure, so like I said, me and Troy, I'm known since third grade. We actually worked together prior to Earn Your Leisure. He calls me on a random, I think it was Sunday. He says, "Hey, I'm gonna start a podcast." And at this point, it's 2019. Nobody knows what a podcast is. I said, "All right, cool, I guess." And I'm sitting in my college dorm room. He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna send you the first episode." So I watched the first episode with my roommate. We're like, "Oh, this is nice," but we're not thinking much of it. So I come home later that summer, and like I said, me and Troy have been lifelong friends. So whenever he needs help, he calls me. Whenever he needs something, I'm there for him. So at this point, I'm not working for Earn Your Leisure, but I'm just helping my friend, which in result is helping Earn Your Leisure grow. So fast forward about 6 months, Earn Your Leisure is about here for about a year now. He says, "Hey, I want to hire you as the operations manager." I'm like, "Hey, why not?" Our last job we did was great. I would love to do it. So he hires me at the operations manager, and there's no training. Earn Your Leisure is a startup company. I don't go through a training class. I don't know what it is to be an operation manager. But what Troy did was he put me in a position to win, and I think that's what you do when you're in places of leadership and power. So he knows I'm organized. He knows I'm disciplined, and he knows those are traits that I carry. So he said, operations manager is a spot that you would excel in. He didn't put me in the graphic design spot because I can't draw a lick. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's very important to place the people around you in places to win. We see it a lot of times with
Yeah.
thank you. We see it a lot of times with our athletes. So they may get to the NBA and now they just have 20 people who are their friends going with them every single place they go. And instead of adding value and being an asset, they're actually a liability. Now the dinner bill's $20,000 when you had $200 worth of food, but you have 30 people at your dinner table. So I think the important thing to do is say, "Hey, all right, you have a good organization skill. Let me put you as my manager. You are good at drawing. Let me make you head of merch, and now you can design shirts, and we can create income from there." Instead of just having people around you who are they're your friends, and you want to give everybody money, but our biggest thing is we want to make money together.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and that's powerful, right? Give a round of applause to that. Yeah. So as you talk, and as you speak about the fact that he saw your skills, right? I know that you were heavy in basketball. You out there killing them, like you were NBA material, right? And then decided not to go there. How did your being in sports play a role in terms of what you end up becoming doing as an operations manager with Earn Your Leisure?
Absolutely. I mean, I owe everything to basketball. So, like I said, from 5 years old till about junior year of college, that's when I first realized I wasn't going to the NBA. And I played basketball every single day, 5 hours a day, and it taught me every single skill that I use today in life. So whether that's discipline, being on time, if practice starts at 6 o'clock, you're late at 5:45. So those little traits I take on and I apply them today. I mean, I've learned that how you do one thing is how you do everything. I don't believe in turning the light on and off. I wake up and I make my bed like I live in a hotel every single day, and it's because that same energy I want
Young
to put.
people, make your bed.
And I didn't learn that until college, but it's a real skill and a trait that you need to take with you in life is how you do one thing is how you're gonna do everything. So when I wake up, you can ask her. I make the bed like I live in a hotel. I get to my routine and I do it every single day. I don't take a day off. The days I don't feel like doing it is when I make sure I do it because those are the days that are more valuable. So basketball taught me everything from hard work, discipline, patience. I played on teams where I was the best player, and then you go to college and freshman year you play no minutes and I'm sitting on the bench and I'm calling my dad crying every day, like I want to transfer. He's like, no. He's like, every time something gets hard, you're just gonna transfer in life. So those are skills that I've learned through basketball, and I owe basketball
Yeah,
everything.
no, 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 absolutely. Powerful stuff, right? So I think there's a lesson to get out of that as well, right? Because sometimes you're trying something. Some of you may have started a business or started a side hustle and it didn't work out right away. And the first thing we do is we jump, we quit. We have the lowest IQ level, not in terms of intelligence, but the lowest I quit level. Anything happen, I quit. And we jump to something else, right? So as you learn in basketball, you got to keep consistent with it, keep on working with it. So you became an operations manager, and how did you kind of grow into that role? And if you could talk a little bit about what you did as an operations manager up to what you're doing now as a chief operating officer.
So how I grew on the road was, and you spoke on it earlier, it was adding value. That was the biggest thing. So I literally would just go with them and say, all right, they need somebody to type out talking points before they interview somebody. All right, let me add this to my agenda. All right, they're stressing about emails. Let me take this off their hands. So it was really just learning on the go, and just traveling with them, being in the role and learning the skills and traits that it takes. And then 6 months after being operations manager, we had the biggest festival that we threw at the time. At the time, that was called Invest Fest. I'll speak on that a little later. And it was a idea we came up with to kind of combine music festivals with business seminars. So I don't know if you remember, a lot of times in the past when you think of a business seminar, you think of suits, ties, people sitting down, notebook, pen, and someone just preaching and someone taking notes. So what we wanted to do was have that same information applied to the people with just making it a little more entertaining, a little more fun, and to catch people's eyes. So we said, why not mix a music festival with a business seminar and have musical performances, fireside chats, food truck village, things of that sort. So we planned Invest Fest. It was a 6-week idea. It was one day they woke up and said, hey, I want to throw a festival with 4,000 people in Atlanta. And a week later, everybody on our team got COVID.
Wow.
Everybody on our team got COVID except for myself and Rashad. So we end up being on the phone every day for 5 weeks, and we throw the festival. Everyone gets cleared, and it turns out to be amazing. 4,000 people in Atlanta.
First Invest Fest,
First
right?
Invest
4,000 people
4,000 people
in 6 weeks.
Yes.
No excuses.
Yes. So from that point on, I get a call the next week and say, hey, you're not operations manager anymore. You're chief operating officer. So
elevate him. Move him up. Yes.
But the biggest thing was I wasn't trained for it. I didn't have the skills or the background knowledge, but I just learned on the fly. And the biggest thing I always kept in my mind was to add value. Wherever I went, add value. And I stuck with that. I still stick with that to this day. How can I add value? A lot of times where I'm at today, I get 100 emails on, can I pick your brain? Can I sit with the guys? Do this and the third. If I can give you one piece of advice, before you ask for anything, add value. Because then everything else will just come naturally.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. So that adding value piece is so essential, right? Because if you're not adding value, you might be detracting, right? By detracting time, energy, and all of those things as well. So you started to add value. Now Earn Your Leisure is doing some like major things, right? And you're there kind of driving the truck, like bringing them and flying them all over the world. Talk to us a little bit about what have you been exposed to now? I know you said you came from Greeburg, so what have you been exposed to now that you weren't exposed to before? And what has that done for your mindset?
I think I've been exposed to I could do anything in life, in a sense. So, like I said, I'm from a small town of Greeburg, and when you're a kid, you think you could do everything in the world, and as you get older, they kind of chip away at it. Hey, I want to be president. That's not realistic. Pick a major in college. Hey, I want to fly. Well, humans don't fly, whatever it might be. As you get older, they kind of chip away at your imagination. And I vividly remember being 22, sitting with my friend. I just graduated college, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? I'm like, I'm not going to the NBA. I don't know anybody that makes $1 million who's not a rapper or an athlete. And I really start to think at this moment, all right, I'm limited to this lifestyle, whatever it might be. So the biggest thing that Earn Your Leisure has done for me is just open my imagination back up. I remember I tell my friends, never stop dreaming. Never stop dreaming. If you think you can have $100 million, don't think because, all right, now my job's $50,000 a year, there's no way I'll get to $100 million. Keep that imagination on because you never know. So the biggest thing Earn Your Leisure has done for me is I think I could do anything. I have dreams, I have goals, and I'm working towards it every single day. Obviously, there's work that has to go into it, but it's just kept my brain open on my imagination. And the biggest thing also is I've learned something called the 6 degrees of separation. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I've heard it. Yep. And if you could just explain it for
the
audience as well.
6 degrees of separation says that everybody is 6 degrees from anybody in the world. So my favorite player of all time is LeBron James. I would think at a point in my life, there's no way I would ever meet LeBron James. Fast forward to now, I'm actually 2 degrees away from LeBron James. I know Troy, who knows Rich Paul, who's LeBron James's agent. So I'm 2 degrees away from LeBron James. And when you put things in that type of perspective, it makes the world smaller. It doesn't make things seem as far-fetched or as big as they might seem in your head. Being a little kid from Greeburg, New York, it actually makes things seem manageable.
No, you've been around a lot of different celebrities that now, yes, that's absolutely awesome, right? A lot of different celebrities. You've been in a lot of different rooms. Could you talk with our young people and for the folks, all the folks in here, about the importance of networking, right? I think I heard Troy say it on the podcast one time where he said it's not about being in the right place at the right time. It's about being in the right place all the time. Right? So could you talk about the importance of networking, especially when it comes to your entrepreneurial journey? journey?
I think networking is so important, but prior to networking, I think just being a good person is important because you never know who you're talking to. I always use this example. I've known Troy since third grade. Being a third grade kid growing up, there's a lot of changes you go through. You could be 10 years old and I have a bad day at school and now I'm yelling at him and that ends our relationship. So I think just being a good person at core is what kind of builds everything. And then like you said, networking. But I think the important thing about networking is networking across. So you may come to a Earn Your Leisure event and you'll see Troy on stage and you're like, I want to go talk to Troy. I want to pitch him my business idea. And little do you know, you might have a graphic designer to the left of you who can help elevate your business. You may have a social media manager who lives 2 doors down who can help elevate your business. So I think network is important, but network across. Network. When I wanted to start a business, I called my best friend. I said, hey, I want to start a management company. Would you want to do it with me? And now we have 4 clients and we're growing every day. When I wanted to start a vending machine company, I called the kid who was in Operation Crossroads with me, who I saw something in him and he was a hard worker. And I said, hey, you want to start a vending machine company? And he's like, I was just thinking that. And now we have 5 vending machines in our old high school that have been up and running for over 2 years. It's a profitable business. So network is
5
important.
vending machines.
5 vending machines.
Any of you eat snacks? Right? Vending machine business,
Yes,
right?
it's a very profitable business. So I think networking across is important. Not always looking up and asking people, "Hey, can I pick your brain?" or asking for anything. And just matter of fact. So just networking across.
Yep, definitely. So, and I just want to go into this question before we get into breaking and getting some questions from the audience, and we're gonna bring back up Mr. Isaac Green. Could you tell me a little bit about, because I know you've done some incredible things and met some incredible people. It's a 2-part question. One, what has been your most exciting, I guess, connection or experience, right? And then what has been your most disappointing experience as an entrepreneur as you've been on this journey? So one, your most exciting, and then your most disappointing. You can start with anyone.
I'll start with the disappointment. And I think you spoke on this briefly. Is I grew up in the culture of rap athletes and growing up and actually learning that a lot of them aren't who they actually are. So I know you mentioned that if they have the chains on, they're throwing money in the club. When I was younger, I thought that was money. I said, oh, he has a Rolls Royce, he has a chain, it's iced out, whatever it might be. And as I've gotten older and been in these rooms, you actually learn those are the people who don't have the money. They don't have any assets. They don't have anything that's bringing them monthly income, whatever it might be. They have all their money on their neck, on a chain. So I would say that would be the biggest disappointment for me growing up, that the people who I thought, they're not who they say they were. So that would be the biggest disappointment for me. And the biggest upside is, I would say, I think meeting Steve Harvey might have been the biggest upside for me. And the reason that itself is because I actually met his COO also, and his COO is about 31 years old, and that's someone who I look to as kind of motivation. And he's handling deals for Steve Harvey in Africa, in Dubai, and whatever that might be. So when I look at him, it puts it in perspective, like I could be doing those same type of things. So I think that relationship itself with Steve Harvey, but more so his COO, to Beanie Stevens, who I have a great relationship with, has been probably the most beneficial for me up until this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of times we go for the star, the person who's out in front, but sometimes you got to make connections, right, with those who are not in the front but are making things happen in the background, right? So I often put it like this: I don't need the judge if I have the jury. Because the jury is going to vote, make the decision, and if I have the jury, we're good to go. Let's give another round of applause to Abdoulaye Sow. Absolutely
Thank you.
awesome, amazing.